Welcome to Making a Murder, Rubberducky YouTube channel. Welcome back, everyone, to RD Making a Murder Daily MaM Reading. We're doing the CASO Investigative Reports. We're going to do 161 through 170 pages, Part 17. So we'll back up just a little bit. This is the conversation between, it's the statement of Judith Knutson, and she's talking about Chuck. So she states, as he was leaving, he said, bye, page 161. The offer still stands. He then wished me happy birthday. I screamed, how? This was signed by Judith C. Knutson, Investigator John Detering, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 162. Type of activity, interview of Jody Stachowski. Date of activity, 11/08/05. Reporting officer, Investigator John Detering. Documents generated, one-page Miranda warning. On Tuesday, 11/08/05, at 12:27 hours, Detective Jacobs of the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department assisted me Detering in the interview of Jody Stachowski, previously mentioned in this report. Prior to asking any questions, Detective Jacobs did review Jody's Miranda rights with her. She indicated she would waive those rights, but did state Steven Avery's lawyer told her not to talk unless they were present. Jacobs did note this on the Miranda waiver. I did follow up this statement and did get the understanding from her that she was speaking voluntarily, even though Steven Avery's attorneys had told her not to speak with law enforcement unless they were present. Jody indicated her hobbies include watching NASCAR, fishing, snowmobiling, and ice fishing. She states she also likes to go for rides and walk on the beach, as well as spend time up north. Jody states she has in the past fished with Steven and the Avery family. She states she will usually fish with Steven, Chucky, Charles, and Steven's nephews. She states the majority of the fishing is done in the Marinette County area. Jody states she and Steven will ride around and look for automobiles to purchase. She states this is how Steven makes the majority of his income. She states Steven will buy automobiles for little money and resell them at a decent markup. Jody indicates she no longer consumes beverages, as she is currently doing a period of incarceration in the Manitowoc County Jail for an OWI 5th offense. She stated she was arrested for this offense in May 2004. Jody states she moved in with Steven Avery in June 2004. Jody states both she and Steven are clean freaks, and Jody stated she did all of the cleaning until she was incarcerated at the Manitowoc County Jail. Jody indicated she almost always makes the bed when she arises. She states she is not sure whether Steven would make the bed or not, as he always arises before she. She stated she has never been separated from Steven since they began living together, even for an overnight, until approximately 08/15/05, when Jody reported to jail. Jody stated it is her job to clean the residence as long as she is home all day. She is unemployed. Jody further indicates that her chores consist of cutting the page 163. Grass, cleaning the pool, and doing laundry. She states Steven can do his own laundry, but she would prefer him not, as he will occasionally mix whites and colors. Jody states last year was the only year she went snowmobiling with the family, and she stated this was predominantly done on the 140 to 160 acres that Avery family owns in Marinette County. She states Steven and she did not avail themselves of any trails, staying strictly on the Avery property. She stated while they were in Marinette County, they would stay at Steven's parents' two-story, four-bedroom home. Jody went on to indicate that Alan Avery spent most of his time in Marinette County, coming back to the auto salvage business on Tuesdays and then leaving again on Thursdays. She indicates Alan is retired and Earl and Charles own the business. She stated Steven helps out with the business a couple hours a day. She states she has no idea as to how or if Steven is paid. Jody states when Steven is not at work, he is in the garage working on vehicles or driving around looking for vehicles to buy. Jody states anytime Steven is not working, Stephen and Jody are together. She states he will, on occasion, go with the family up north. However, they remain in cell phone contact during this time. Once again, Jody indicated she has never had an overnight stay away from Stephen since she began living with him other than during her incarceration. Jody states Stephen has no friends that stop over at the property. She states the only visitors to Stephen's mobile home would be his sister, Barbara, and Barbara's children. She states Stephen has no friends over and will occasionally talk to a Tammy LNU who calls for parts. She states that, to her knowledge, Stephen has no other friends. Jody stated Stephen never discussed growing up with her. Jody indicated the pool on Stephen's property was purchased by Stephen and her and used by Barb's kids once or twice. She stated Barbara ultimately bought a pool for her children, and her children made use of the pool Barbara had purchased. She stated Stephen did not want to take the pool down as he's too lazy with anything except cars. She stated it would be Stephen's habit to leave a glass on the table or a plate on the table when he is done with it instead of moving it to the sink. Jody indicates when Stephen is finished working, he will normally eat, talk with his mother, and then begin to work on cars. She was asked about the Suzuki that was in Stephen's garage. She indicated she does not know where the vehicle was parked, but stated it does not run. She stated it was used up north on the land the Averys own. Page 164. Jody was asked about a snowmobile in the garage. She stated the snowmobile she is aware of is old, and it is parked against the wall closest to Stephen's sister, Barbara's residence. She stated this snowmobile is covered with things, and she does not know if it is operational. I mentioned there's a newer snowmobile in the area, and Jody stated this snowmobile came from the Avery property in Marinette County. I asked her why Stephen would bring it to his garage, and Jody stated probably to get it ready for snowmobiling. Jody indicated Charles and Earl fish, but she is unsure where they do their fishing in this vicinity. Jody stated Charles and Earl used to drink, but they do not drink now. She states Barbara does not consume intoxicants either, nor does Stephen. Jody indicated Charles has 2 daughters that live with his ex-wife and also has a son by the name of Corey, who is deceased as a result of a traffic accident. Jody indicates that as far as she knows, there are no family problems between Stephen's brothers and sister. Jody went on to indicate if Stephen was going to do something to someone, it would be to her, as no one else would miss me. Jody went on to indicate she and Stephen have had arguments, and Stephen had gotten arrested at one point. She stated the cause of this arrest was him throwing things, and she got scared of his temper. She denies ever having Stephen being physically abusive towards her. Jody did indicate that Barbara Yonda's ex-husband is now married to Steve Avery's ex-wife. She stated their names are Peter and Lori Dassey, and they live in the Two Rivers area. Jody was asked if there are any specific jobs that any of the brothers perform. She stated all the guys do all the work and there's no assignments necessary. She stated the crusher is rented about 1 time per year, and she states she has no idea who this is rented from or when. She stated the crusher was not there when she reported to jail. Jody went on to indicate bonfires are enjoyed in Marinette County, and it is usually Stephen, her, and Stephen's parents. She states Earl, Charles, and Barbara mainly come up to Marinette County during the gun season, the gun deer hunting season. Page 165. Jody indicated the drive to the Marinette County would take between 2 1/2 to 3 hours. She does indicate that Earl is the only brother who actually owns property in the Marinette County near his father. Jody indicates she and Stephen do not go to the Marinette property during the week. I asked Jody if Charles Avery is seeing anyone. She stated Charles is not dating, and she stated Charles tried to date her before she met Stephen. She then advised me Charles has tried to make passes at her. She stated Charles has asked to come over to the mobile home when Stephen, and on occasion Earl, goes to the auto auction. She states she has rebuffed Charles' advances. Jody describes Steven as an easygoing individual like Earl. She stated Charles is a little different and can be kind of an uptight and further can be a prick depending on the day. She stated Charles is in his 50s, Steven is 43, and she is unsure how old Barbara is, and Earl is the baby. She then stated she is not exactly sure whether Barbara is older than Steven or a little younger. Jody went on to indicate that Steven will tell you what is on his mind, whether he is angry or not. Jody states, unless they are only going to the gas station in Mishkat or to the salvage yard, Steven always locks his doors. She stated there is usually someone home next door to watch the comings and goings at Steven's mobile home. Jody indicated Steven's mother and the mobile home owner, Raleigh Johnson, have keys to the mobile home and no one else. She stated on occasion, Raleigh Johnson would come up to the mobile home Steven lives in to get away from his house. She stated on one occasion Raleigh came up and stayed for a couple hours and actually came into the house to get an item and then subsequently left. Jody was asked about any sort of bondage that might go on. She stated she and Steven have experimented with bondage several times. She stated she has tied Steven and he has tied her. She stated usually they only restrain one another by the arms. She stated that in one incident, Steven did actually tie her by the legs, but her ankles hurt too much and they stopped. She states they will always leave the restraints loose enough for them to slip out of. She stated there have never been any attempts on either one of their parts at asphyxia. She states they will have sex every day and sometimes they will have sex 5 times per day. She states this consists of penile-vaginal intercourse. She states they have had sex in the house, in the pool, and one time on the deck of the residence. She denies having any sort of fantasy role-playing, be either her or Steven. Jody indicated she has suggested to Steven that Steven rip off her clothes, but page 166. He declined to do that. Jody indicates she knows Steven has sexually explicit photos of his ex-wife, but indicated these photos do not bother Jody. Jody indicated Steven has owned lots of cars since she has known him. She states he will buy a unit for not much money and then sell it for a little more money, and this is how he supplements his income once again. My interview with Jody Stachowski terminated at 14:14 hours. Investigation continues. Investigator John Dietering, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 167. Type of activity, telephone contact with Marvin J. Monfiles. Date of activity, 11/08/05. Reporting officer, Investigator John Dietering. Documents generated, none. On Tuesday, 11/08/05, at 16:16 hours, I, Dietering, did place a telephone call to the following individual regarding this matter. Marvin J. Monfiles. Monfiles had left a message for our agency indicating that he had possibly had information regarding the incident. Upon making contacting with Monfiles, he stated he had observed Steven Avery in Crivitz, Wisconsin, on Thursday, 11/03/05 at a restaurant. Monfiles indicated that on Thursday, 11/03/05, he had arrived at the restaurant in Crivitz between the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. He stated this restaurant is located at the first stoplight in Crivitz next to a gas station. Monfiles indicated that if this wasn't Steven, it was his twin. Monfiles indicated there was a female with this individual as well as a 14 to 18-year-old male child. Monfiles indicated the 3 left prior to him, and he was unable to see what the individuals left in. Monfiles indicated the subject left shortly after Monfiles arrived. He stated he could not describe the female who was with the 2. He stated they were seated near a wall by the buffet in the non-smoking area. He stated they had gone through the wall and were looking out some windows. He stated the boy was not heavy-set and had dark hair, which was not real long. Investigation continues. Investigator John Dietering, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 168. Type of activity, interview with Earl Avery, male, white. Date of activity, Tuesday, 11/08/05 at approximately 4:30 p.m. Reporting officer, Investigator Gary Stryer. On Tuesday, 11/08/05 at approximately 4:30 p.m., Investigator G. Stryer of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, along with Special Agent Stephen Lewis of the State of Wisconsin Department of Criminal Investigation, DCI, interviewed Earl K. Avery, male, white, date of birth 06/10/70, at his residence of 6904 County Highway Y, Whitelaw, Wisconsin. Investigators meet with Earl in the driveway of his residence. Earl informs investigators Stephen's attorney has informed him not to talk to the police. Investigator Stryer informs Earl that he, Stryer, will state why the police are wanting to talk to Earl, and Earl can decide if he wants to answer the questions at that time. Earl indicates this is okay and he will speak with investigators. Earl sketches a diagram of the Avery Auto Salvage Yard for investigators, noting which outbuilding or shed is used for what purpose. Earl states a car crusher is owned by a different company. Earl informs investigators that Steven Avery has crushed a blue Jeep Wagoneer in the car crusher and believes this is the last car to be crushed. Earl also indicates Steven Avery is the only brother that started selling cars on Auto Trader. Earl indicates this is Steven's idea and he was the one doing that. Earl believes the cost to be about $90. While speaking with Earl Avery, Chuck Charles Avery calls Earl Avery's residence and wishes to speak with investigators. Investigator Stryer speaks with Charles Avery telephonically, who states he is the owner of the salvage yard. Charles Avery indicates the land is owned by his mother and Earl and Charles are partners in the business. Charles indicates his dad does the books and handles the money. Charles indicated he wants a vehicle, a blue Impala, next to the Big Blue Shop, and provides investigators with safe combinations for investigators to open the safes located at his residence and on the Avery's Auto Salvage Yard property. Charles Avery then turns the phone over to Barbara, Charles's sister, who talks to Investigator Stryer and informs Investigator Stryer of a safe combination located in her residence, located next to Steven Avery's property. Barbara indicates she also has keys, which will open two smaller fire safes located at her residence. At this time, the conversations end, and investigators leave Earl's residence. Page 169. Investigator Gary Stryer, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 170. Type of activity, contact with Francis L. Thielman. Date of activity, 11/08/05. Reporting Officer Investigator John Dietering. Documents generated, none. On Tuesday, 11/08/05 at 16:57 hours, I, Dietering, did make contact with the following individual regarding this matter. Francis L. Thielman. Anonymous information had been developed that the Avery family has some sort of underground bunker on their Marinette County property. The information passed along to this agency indicated the underground bunker resembled a large tank cut down the middle. The information was obtained indicated that this would be a good place to hide a body, and further indicated that Francis Thielman may have some knowledge about this bunker. Francis indicated he has hunted with the Avery family, but has no knowledge of any underground storage area or bunker area. He stated he has hunted with both Alan Avery and Alan's brother Gene. He states he still hunts with Gene Avery on the property approximately 2 miles away from the land Alan Avery owns in Marinette. Francis indicated he has never spoken to anyone about any underground storage area. Francis indicated he has never really hunted with Alan on Alan's property, but has hunted 2 times with Alan out west. Francis indicated he has only met Stephen 1 time, and this was after Stephen had been released from prison. Francis did recall 1 time that the family was discussing building a perch tank in a big metal building. The purpose of this tank was to have the Averys possibly begin commercially raising fish. Francis indicated there was a second metal garage that has machinery in it and a third garage for the vehicles. Francis indicated he is unsure how big the property is, but did indicate it's pretty big. All right, you guys, let's go ahead and start our review of this. So, page 161, Chucky knows the girl's birthday, and it happens to be her birthday, and he wishes her happy birthday. She's wondering how he just dug out of her car. He could have looked up her car registration. I'm not sure. But, he's paying a lot of attention to somebody that is not inviting it. Page 162, we're looking at the interview of Jody, Steven's fiance. And she stated she was arrested for OWI in May of 2004, that she moved in with Steven Avery in June 2004. So if she's arrested, is she still out for a while and then get sentenced? Maybe. So that's the timeline that Jody enters this as in June of 2004. She states that her and Steven are clean freaks, though she does state that Steven's lazy, unless it comes to cars. And so I'm thinking he wants it clean, but she does the cleaning. However, it does look like he keeps a fairly clean place as well. Page 163, we learn here that there's 140 to 160 acres that the Avery family owns in the Marinette County. So that when they say they go up north, they own some property. Ellen is retired, and Earl and Charles own the business. She stated that Steven helps out with the business a couple hours a day. She states she has no idea as to how or if Steven is paid. So Steven's not part of the business technically on the payroll, it doesn't sound like. And if he is, it's not very much time during the day. So it can't be amounting to a lot of money. I imagine that this, even though she says that she doesn't know of any issues, I think she's just trying to protect them all. I think there would be some issues because, he's wanting to be a part of it, or he wouldn't be helping out a couple hours a day. Maya is snoring terribly. Maya, wake up. Quit snoring. Nobody wants to hear that. Sorry, guys. The pug's snoring terribly bad every time I read. Jody indicated she has never had an overnight stay away from Steven since she began living with him, other than her incarceration. So they're spending a lot of time together. And Jody states Steven has no friends that stop over to the property. That Steven has no friends. That's so sad, you guys. She does state that those visitors that would come to the mobile home of the family would be Barb or her children. Okay? So right there, that kind of, if the cops are looking for who would have been a witness and stuff, they're going to focus on those kids right there. And that fits neatly into their plan. Plus, if we are looking for who would have access to the blood in the sink, it kind of tells you right there. Goes on to say she was asked about the Suzuki. Now remember, this was the little gray type Jeep vehicle that's sitting in the garage. Jody here states that she does not know where the vehicle is parked, but it doesn't run. So it was used up north on the land the Averys own. And then in 64, she goes on to say she doesn't know if the snowmobile is operational right in here. So it looks to me like he's bringing things into the garage that he wants to work on, which makes perfect sense. She states that he probably wanted to get the snowmobile ready for snowmobiling because October and then November and then you get snow then. Jody went on to indicate she and Steven have had arguments. Steven has gotten arrested at one point. She stated that cause of this arrest was him throwing things. And she got scared, and she called the cops. But she denies that Steven's being physical abusive to her in any way. So right here is where her original statement starts, that Steven wasn't abusive to her. We've all got mad and thrown things. And if you haven't, then you just haven't experienced a lot of anger. But I've thrown a potted plant. I threw dishes in the garbage when we fought as a youth. I'm in my 50s now. I would never do that. But when I was in my early 20s and the husband would make me mad, I didn't throw anything at anybody, but I would knock the plant off the table mad. When my husband left me, I broke all his mother's china that she had given us. I broke it all just straight in the garbage. Maybe that makes me a bad person. I don't know. But that's what I did. And so I think throwing things is not that big of a deal. And it's not like he's hurting her. Jody did indicate that Barb Yanda's ex-husband is now married to her brother, Steve Avery's ex-wife. Now, I knew this, but it's just so strange. So Barbara's ex-husband and Stephen's ex-wife get married, and they're Peter and Lori Dassey, and they live in Two Rivers. She stated the car crusher is rented about once per year, and that she has no idea who rented it or where it came from. It wasn't there before she reported for jail. So what perfect timing, as always, to have a car crusher there. Even though the car crusher did not factor in anything to do with the RAV4, it did bother me that it was implied that that was part of the plot, that Steve was getting the car ready to crush it, when we all know it doesn't take but an hour or two to crush a car. You basically want to remove a gas tank. You don't have to, but you want to drain all the fluids out and take the battery out. That's about it. You can crush it full engine, everything. Page 165. So Jody goes on to indicate that Earl is the only brother who actually owns property in Marinette up north. And it's near Alan Avery's. And then she advises us that Charles has tried to make passes at her, and that he makes it convenient when the other guys are gone, and that so far she has rebuffed his advances. So Charles does this quite often in these reports. She stated Charles is a little different and can be uptight, and further can be a prick during, depending on the day. So, wow. Not really a good overlook on Charles's personality from any of these women's statements. She stated there is usually someone home next door, meaning the Yonda residence, which is Barb's residence, and her Dassey boys, to watch the comings and goings at Stephen's mobile home. So, yeah, that would lead you to believe that Bobby could have very easily known when Stephen was leaving. And he already knew that Stephen had bled on the Grand Dam, as well as on the piece that he got his finger cut on. Jody indicates Stephen's mother and the mobile home owner, Raleigh Johnson, have keys to the mobile home and no one else. And she does suggest that they lock their door unless they're going to the gas station or into the salvage yard. Jody indicated she has suggested to Stephen that Stephen rip off her clothes, but he declined to do that. Now we're talking about, a fiance. They're in their intimate business, and he refused to do that. So that's interesting, I thought, to bring that up, that he's not into forcing someone into things. Page 167. This was weird. Marvin Monophiles, this guy, he calls up, he swears it on the 3rd. Is it the 3rd? Yes, the 3rd. That he saw someone, if it wasn't Stephen, it was his twin, up in Crivets, and it was with a female. And then also he stated there was a young male, anywhere between 14 and 18 years old. The male was not heavyset, had dark hair, which was not real long. I don't know, you guys. The 3rd, he shouldn't have been up there. We should have heard that he went to Crivets earlier. And I think it would be hard fit to put him up in that location. But he could have went to lunch up there, but it's a 6-hour round trip. Page 168, we are on an interview with Earl Avery, and Investigator Stryer kind of works Earl a little bit. He says, "Hey, Earl, I understand that Stephen's attorney doesn't want you to talk to us, but," and he even says, "Earl can decide if he wants to answer the questions at that time." So Earl gives in and he starts answering questions. Earl informs that Steven Avery has crushed a blue Jeep Wagner in the car crusher, and that it is the last car to be crushed. So that was supposed to be on the 3rd. So how would he be in Crivets and crushing a car? I mean, it could be done, but it's starting to sound like this other guy was dreaming a little bit. Plus, he says something about them going through a wall. I didn't understand that part. Stryer speaks with Charles Avery on the phone. So Charles calls a house knowing the investigators are there, and he's telling him he wants to get his hands on that blue Impala. and that it's parked next to the Big Blue Shop. And then he provides these safe combinations for the investigators to be able to go through the safes on the property of Charles, as well as the salvage yard. Then Barb talks to the investigators, and she speaks of the safe numbers to her safes, as well as keys she has, which will open 2 smaller safes. So they're very forthcoming. Oh my, sorry about that. I have a little head cold. I'm trying to hide it. Okay. Page 170 is our last page, and we get an interview with Francis Thielman, and they get an information, anonymous tip, that a Marinette up north, that the Averys have an underground bunker, and that it'd be a good place to hide a body. I find that interesting. Who would have told them it was a good place to hide a body? Because we have that running joke between Mike O and Bobby about hide a body. So who was their tip on? And do we find a bunker? So far we haven't found one. But Francis goes on to say he has no knowledge of an underground bunker. He's never spoke of one. He said that they did talk about a perch tank, which was in a big metal building, and that they were talking about commercially raising fish. So, what really has me just floored is Charles. Charles seems to have quite, how do I put it? He just doesn't take no for an answer, and he does not understand where the lines are. She's seeing his brother. They're going to get married, and Charles is waiting for the big guys to go so that he can, cat and mouse it up. And it just really bothers me through this entire thing that Charles tries to make passes at her, coming over. I don't know. And his attitude seems to be kind of uptight. He's really kind of strange. It's just strange, okay? All right, that completes today's daily read, and thank you for staying with me on this. All right, guys, that wraps up the part 17, our daily MaM reading. Wow, what an interesting read. My jaws just dropped open. These are really getting good. Very interesting. And to learn what we are. Thank you for supporting our channel, as well as Brendan and Steven, keeping them in the light. And with the world watching, we know that they're safe. Every day we're going to continue to do our best to strive to bring awareness to those that are wrongfully convicted. And, we always have the same saying at the end because it's so important. And that is, if you didn't do the crime, you shouldn't do the time. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.